Virgo, hello. We did it. We made it. We made it. Happy New Year. I hope that you're enjoying this transition into 2026. Well, what a year it has been. So for this January check-in, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take a look overall at 2026 and see kind of what the vibe is here, what you should be leaving behind, the major kind of challenge or obstacle that you're going to be facing, what we can do to overcome that, and then of course what spirit feels like you need to know. But we're going to get started here and take a look and just see what your overall, that was fast, energy is for the new year. And that is the Ace of Swords, which just popped right out. And the Eight of Wands in the shadow here. It feels like we want to move to a place that we feel happy, secure, what's the word? Valued, and feel like there's like this sense of giving back, feeling like we're giving what we're giving with intention and we're receiving with intention. Something along those lines here. Ace of Swords, some new perspective here. So, and a lot of the signs, like maybe I should do a warning here. Typically, or the signs, we've been going a little deep, okay? So we'll see what comes up for you, Virgo. But with that Ace of Swords, I'm wondering if there's, if you're truly seeking to like change your perspective here, in a major way. So for example, like changing if you're a pessimist and you're trying to become an optimist, or a realist but wanting to add a little bit more optimism in there, feels like a foundational, like a fundamental perspective shift is what I'm getting here. And it's more to a stance. There's a vulnerability that I'm picking up on here. This idea of being perhaps a little bit more open, a little bit more trusting than you have been in past. This idea of letting our guard down, but standing in that standing in that vulnerability from a position of strength here. So being open and secure and feeling happy there, while almost giving and receiving in harmony. Like, interesting. Okay, let's go ahead and clarify here, or not clarify, but let's go ahead and see some of these cards here. Words are hard right now. Okay. All right. So, we have here what you should be leaving behind, judgment. Yeah. So, even to just kind of take that at face value, perhaps we have been too judgmental of ourselves, of others, and it feels like there's a sense of feeling on guard when we're judging. It automatically, I feel like, puts us into a defensive, but that, like, either way, it puts a wall up between you and somebody else, right? And it feels like with judgment, and I know I'm taking that literally, but that's what spirit is. It's like, oh, like it automatically jumped to judgment, in the literal sense. It feels like we're trying to leave some aspect of that behind. And that's what I'm speaking on, like this fundamental shift of mindset. Leaving that behind allows us to interact more It allows us to engage. It allows us to be present, right? When we're there, as opposed to taking ourselves out of the present moment by listening to that judgment, right? To allow that to take that on as fact, as opposed to a mirror showing us a reflection of ourselves, right? So interesting here. Going deeper than that, I'm wondering if there's a sense of this idea that we keep waiting for universe or spirit to give us something, as opposed to giving ourselves something, doing that work to make it happen. We're waiting for spirit to step in. We're waiting for the universe to step in. And perhaps that's something that we need to leave behind, is that, well, if the universe or if spirit wants me to do something about it, then they'll send me a sign. As opposed to, if I'm contemplating this and if I keep realizing that I'm not really getting anywhere, perhaps I should try to manifest this change on my own, right? That kind of line of thinking as well. Could even be something like that, right? Just this idea that our purpose will come to us, right? That the answers will be gifted to us. And that's, that can be challenging, right? How do we find our purpose while listening to the universe, but how much is too much? Where's that balance a little bit? And again, we go back to balance. But just interesting here with that judgment position. And of course, we'll clarify and see what else Spirit has to say in terms of the challenge. With that Four of Cups in reverse, that is the only cup or the only card we have in reverse. It's interesting. It feels like just it's the wrong way. It's the wrong way. And while Four of Cups, the right way, is not an active energy. It's a passive energy. It's ignoring. It's going through the motions. It's kind of bored, checked out, not engaged, not doing anything. He's not doing anything for himself. He's just sitting there, right? Stagnant. And in the reverse, it's not right? So again, this idea of what's wrong, what's being wrong, something's out of place here. But it's releasing that stagnant energy, right? And that's really what you want. And so what I'm feeling like this challenge or obstacle for kind of a recurring theme for you for 2026, Virgo, is this idea of kind of rectifying in your brain that something's wrong. It doesn't have its place. And how can we be okay with that? Right? And how can we take more of a stance on things and be more open to different perspectives, or respecting that there's room for other people to hold their perspective, and their perspective might not be our perspective, but it's not wrong, it's just different. And resist the urge to back away, but further lean in and encourage that back and forth between you and another individual or you in a situation, right? Instead of taking one look and saying, no, this is wrong, I'm out. Well, let's take a look in, and maybe it's not wrong. It's just different from what you would do, right? Or it's something about it doesn't make you feel safe. Well, what doesn't make you feel safe about it, right? So there's just this kind of idea of engaging with something that might initially give us, I'm hearing give me the ick, but might initially give us pause, or, like learning to lean into something that, and I'm not saying this goes against your intuition, but it lean into something that perhaps you would just judge at a glance, right? And I'm not saying surface level, I'm saying judge at a glance and say, no, this isn't for me. But perhaps there's something in that dynamic situation, person, that is for you, or that you can find common ground with, right? Or that you can pull from that specific scenario and say, I didn't think of it this way, or I didn't consider that this was another route into the direction that I wanted to go. Something along those lines, right? And how to overcome this here. We have this interesting. We have the Seven of Swords and the Page of Wands. It's interesting because it feels like having that guard up is the natural tendency, but how can we kind of, this is hard to articulate, give the benefit of the doubt, or at least allow space to I'm wondering if it's about intention, right? Is somebody intending to purposely deceive? Is a situation, is the intent behind that to deceive? What is the intention? And if the intention is wrong, do we give that a chance? Well, I mean, but if the intention is good or well-meaning, and you don't agree, well, can you find common ground? Or do we dismiss them as wrong, even though their intention might be good or pure or whatever, right? Interesting. I'm curious to explore that more. What we need to know, engaging, right? That really feels like the vibe for you, Virgo, is how do we engage? How do we move forward, right? And again, with this idea, how do we stand in a place where we're happy, where we're fulfilled, and a little bit more open than we have been. Not because we need to be, but because we want to be. Perhaps there is a desire to connect more with people, right? And for that, we have to be willing to allow more people in, right? And allow different personalities and different perspectives in, which is scary. But to see how we engage with people that push our comfort zone, right? In a good way, a good push. Yeah. So almost this idea here in the shadow that we want to stay there's this urge to kind of hunker down, right? And just stick with what we got. But there's also this, it feels like this bigger desire to connect and to soar. And to just, I feel like this, like, here I have like shallow breathing, and here I'm able to breathe deep and just relax, right? Interesting. So let's see here. Let's get some clarifiers for that Judgment energy. And there's that Four of Pentacles as well. There you are in reverse. Yeah. So again, going in a direction here where it just feels very uncomfortable. I'm sensing that resistance, right? This idea of, okay, we want to put some things down, but how do we do that? Where do we put our stuff? What are we supposed to let go of? What is, what are we supposed to carry with us? How do we gauge this new space? How do we gauge this new interaction here? It feels like we're out of whack a little bit, like out of, not grounded is kind of what I'm seeing here, right? And so perhaps the intention is good, or we made a promise or a commitment or something like that, but it's kind of like, oh, well, we're all turned upside down a little bit here. And it could be that you literally feel like, 2026, we kind of feel off kilter. We feel like we're in the upside down or something like that, right? Where, something... Perhaps, for some of you Virgos, something didn't go accordingly and you didn't really quite understand that. And it's kind of like, well, oh my gosh, I thought the universe was going to provide for me in this way. I thought this was going to happen or something like that, right? And maybe that it didn't end up that way. But with the King of Swords in reverse, it really does speak on, perhaps we were too rigid. Our king was too judgmental. We were being too judgmental. And we were doing so good. And then how did we end up here? And it feels like we ended up here because we were being a little bit too hard-headed. And now we're in a place where it's not so pleasant, right? Let's see. So for that Four of Cups in reverse, we have the Two of Pentacles, Death, Five of Cups, and the Queen of Wands. Yeah, we want to move on, is what I'm seeing here. The challenge is that we want to change. We want to change where we focus our priorities. We want to change this kind of existence in isolation here. And perhaps you feel isolated. You feel alone. You feel some sort of sadness around something where, maybe you feel like nobody understands you, or some sort of aspect of that. You're doing it all alone, nobody cares as much as you, something along those lines, right? And again, it feels like there's this desire to change, this desire to open up with that Queen of Wands, this desire to be confident and outgoing, and maybe even for some of you, like the life of the party, right? And we don't know, and maybe for some of you are, but it just feels like there's a step missing or something missing here. And so it just feels like the challenge is, how do we not get lost in that isolation? And and move or direct our life with an intention of interacting, but true interaction, not analyzing our maybe dissecting is a better word, not dissecting everyone, but interacting with them, right? Because it almost feels like dissecting, or that kind of vibe, sets us apart automatically from, people that we're trying to interact with, people that we're trying to connect with, right? How can we be in enjoyment? How can we embrace fun and connection from in a different way, right? Yeah, it feels like there's some part of or aspect of connection that's missing, and we don't know how to navigate that. We know we don't want to sit alone. We know we don't want to eat alone, right? In this space of nobody understands us, nobody gets us. But in order to do that, we have to jump off that cliff and engage with people that might be and are different from us, and don't think the same way that we do, don't understand things the same way that we do, don't agree with us on certain things, but how can we still form connection with them, despite them thinking differently or not understanding in our way, right? But on the other side of that person or those people are, you don't think like them, you don't understand how they understand, right? And so there's value in seeing things from a different perspective, right? So instead of dissecting, you're coming to an understanding with the people around you, right? And that's not to say like, we're gonna embrace everyone, no, but people with similar values can connect while still differing on opinion, right? Interesting. Interesting, like, because we want to engage, we want to change, we don't want to continue to be isolated here, but that requires a step in the direction of engagement. And maybe it's not that you want to be the life of the party, you just want to be at the party. You know what I mean? And while you're at the party, you want to have fun, right? Instead of sitting in the corner eating the snacks or playing with the dog, which, I love dogs. I love, the furry animals. And so that's fun too. But, there's something to be said for having a truly engaging conversation with other individuals that might challenge your perspective and in turn challenge theirs. Let's go ahead and take a look at this Seven of Swords, Page of Wands. Thank you. Yeah, see, even here, right? Judgment, Tower, the Star. There's something about, excuse me, leaning on some awakening, leaning on some aha moment that isn't working. It's not giving you the result that you want. Things don't just magically poof appear out of nowhere just by us wanting it. We have to work for it. The universe, spirit, has to see that we're working towards something. And in this kind of way, it's almost like we want to, like, universe wants to see you opening up in a way that you haven't for some time, or maybe at all. For the Seven of Swords and the Page of Wands, here we have the Four of Swords in reverse, 10 of Wands, and the 3 of Swords in reverse. So it's interesting that these two swords make 7, which is the 7 there. And then we have the 10 of Wands, right? So we still have that air and fire energy is clarified by air and fire. But again, the card that's turned upside down, or one of them, is that 4 of Swords, that idea of checking out, or, removing yourself from the situation, or disassociating, right? Because that's not what's required. You need to engage this year. You need to show up. You need to be present. And just because we disagree with somebody, the conversation shouldn't end there. It should start there, right? Or at least try. And just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong, or that they're right and you're wrong. It just means there's a disagreement. And so how do we honor each other, and try to at least see the other perspective, to see what value is placed in that. And if that value challenges our value, or if the value is the same, we're just seeing it from a different perspective, right? So just very interesting there. 10 of Wands, there's a weight that I feel, this heaviness. I don't want to say that you're bringing baggage to every, it's almost like I see you carrying all these suitcases with you everywhere you go. And then how do we unpack all of this, right? I'm hearing every conversation doesn't need to be a serious one. We can have fun. We can be light. We can keep it light. Me personally, I'm not a fan of service level conversation. I'm not. It's just, I like to understand a person. I like to interact with a person. I like to be one-on-one with somebody, just to really get to know their essence, right? And for them to get to know mine. So service level really doesn't do it for me. But there's some times where I just want to, go out and have fun, right? And just keep it, we're not talking about religion. We're not talking about, work. We're just having fun. We're just being in the moment. And it feels like this energy is constantly wanting to, heavy, let's talk about all of it. Let's dissect all of it. Let's do all of it. And if there's not all of it there, then what are we doing? If there's not all of it, I don't want any of it kind of idea, right? And it feels like there's such a seriousness there that it's almost like, how do we... we need a little light and fun and enjoyment, right? Sometimes we just have to nourish ourselves a little bit. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling here. It's like this idea of, not everybody's out to get us. We don't always have to see, be observant of somebody's character, but, not everybody's out to get us. Not everybody's out to manipulate. Not everybody's out to harm. And so, people can have a little fun. We don't need to analyze everybody for every little thing that they do or say, or how they say things, right? We can let that go. And perhaps, there have been some people who have really hurt you in some form or fashion from their words, from their actions, from deceit and all of that. But it feels like continuing to carry that with you everywhere you go is not serving you. And there feels almost like a component of judging your present by your past. And how do we let that go? Well, we're not sure yet. And so maybe we keep looking to spirit to say, well, show me how, or just let this go for me, without knowing how to do the work. And it feels like spirit is saying, you can't rely on me to take this away from you. Part of your path is to learn how to let it go yourself. And that's kind of what I'm seeing here. It's like, well, there's this desire to be free and vulnerable and enigmatic and, have true connection with people, but we don't know how to get there. We don't know how to let that go. But we want to, right? But we also don't want to at the same time. It's tricky. But when you figure it out, it just makes it that much more meaningful, right? If spirit were to, it's like a genie in a bottle. If you were to grant 3 wishes right away, there's appreciation there, but not as much appreciation as if you had to work for it yourself, and do it yourself there. Yeah. I'm just looking in the shadow here. It feels like maybe you haven't been either giving or receiving in the way that you want, and so in turn you've stopped giving or receiving, or both. And it feels like that's really kind of impacted your way forward here. Coming into that 5 of Wands, we have that clarified by judgment, and then the 5 of Pentacles in reverse along with that Page of Cups. So yeah, this just again feels like more bringing your past into your present here. And maybe somebody really did hurt you or deceive you. And really gave you a run for your money here, Virgo. But that doesn't mean that everybody else will. And that doesn't mean that you can't trust people in general. We can be cautious and we can be mindful of giving too much, speaking too much, all of that. But there's nothing wrong with dipping our toe in the water, even if it's a little bit colder than we would like. And maybe walking in, to our knees or something, just to see, right? Just to see what it's like. And that doesn't mean there's a shark in that water. Or if there is a shark in that water, it doesn't mean that you can't see it, or that you don't have the ability to stop, or take yourself out of that water before getting bit kind of idea. Not everybody's a shark. And it feels like we need to stop thinking that everybody's out to get us. We need to stop thinking that no one will ever understand us, you know, that kind of thing. I'll always be misunderstood. Everybody will always try to take from me, you know, just that kind of negativity here. It just feels like that's what we're trying to change. This fundamental shift. Perhaps what's changing for you, Virgo, is learning how to trust people again. Despite them not agreeing or seeing things from your perspective all the time. Interesting here. Very interesting. Let's see what... Oh, no. We're doing these cards first. Let's see what else we have for Virgo, please. The Hermit. There you are. There you are. Four of Swords. Yeah, it just, you know, feels like you've been checked out a little bit. Not engaging here. Nine of Pentacles, where you want to be present and enjoy and, right, feel good. It feels like that's the missing piece. Seven of Swords, yeah, you know, maybe people have been very deceitful. Maybe it's hard for you to trust, right? And so we've closed off everyone when really we just want to be open to some people, open to engage, open to debate, open to conversation, right? But that idea of not trusting people or waiting until they, you know, take advantage or try to take something from us or whatever, right? Deceive us in some way. It's almost like you're waiting for their true colors to show and waiting for them to mess up. Well, if you wait long enough, somebody's going to mess up, right? We're all human. We all make mistakes. King of Pentacles. Yeah, you want to elevate yourself is what I'm feeling here. Karmic justice, perhaps that plays a hand in this, right? Just kind of feeling like the hand you were dealt. This is the hand I was dealt. Well, we can still change that, right? There's still time. There's still opportunity here. Two of Wands. There's still that choice, right? Are we going to continue, you know, to be very basic about it? Glass half full, glass half empty. Which way? Are we going to trust this person? Or are we not? Just because they don't agree with us, is that an end all? Or can we, you know, stay open in that way? Yeah. Knight of Cups. Yeah, self-reflection. And it feels like there's always, just within playing chess here, there's always that strategy. There's always that strategizing. There's always that observing, that tactical, it feels like, mindset here. And it's like, how do we have that, but still interact with people that have a different perspective, that we don't agree with everything with, right? Or don't understand our perspective. Interesting here. What else do we have for Virgo? Oop. Paint the sun back into your sky. Yeah. It just feels very isolated. Every hurricane comes to an end. Yeah. Villain, you can always rewrite the story, and you can. Oh. It feels like that's what you're trying to do, or that's what the longing is for. But it's almost like we don't want that, or almost like we can't stop ourselves, right? Universe, we're all just stardust. Castle, it's time for healing. And perhaps that's where, it needs to start, is with healing. Healing yourself. Stand up for yourself, right? Stand up for what you need. Take action, right? Take action. Show the universe what you want. I am surrounded and filled with infinite wisdom. I am one with the very power that created me. This power loves all its creations, including me. So I'm wondering if there's this feeling of you've been overlooked, right? This idea of being overlooked, and it's almost like we need to step into or reclaim your power. The moment I'm willing to change, it is amazing how the universe brings me what I need. I trust myself and the process of life. What was that again? The moment I am willing to change, it is amazing how the universe brings me what I need. Yeah. Virgo, very heavy reading here. And as I said, they all are kind of heavy. Major aspects of internal change here for you, Virgo, and I'm so excited to see how this plays out for you in 2026. I wish you the very best heading into the year of the horse, and I hope you gain the right momentum that you're looking for here. It'll come together. It'll come together. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you. Happy New Year, and we'll see you again soon.